I had the Chiefs at first place. They ended up being first place, so kudos to me
second
on
place.
that one.
Nope.
What?
Second place. Are you
I had
talking
them
about
in
first place in the division or in the AFC?
Yeah, first place in the division.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I had them first place in the division. I had them 14-3. They did not go 14-3. They ended up going 12-5. I mean, not too far off, but for a while they did not look like they there was questions in the middle of the year whether they would make the playoffs for not just winning the division but making the playoffs. And then they had a game against the Raiders, and that ended very shortly, those talks. So I then had the Los Angeles Chargers. I really liked the Chargers this year. I thought they were going to be really good. I liked their head coach. I forgot he's a rookie head coach, and that was my downfall there.
And he cost him a playoff berth.
Honestly, too, I thought their defense was going to be better, and it was their weakest point. I mean, their offensive line actually got a lot better, and that's what I kept focusing on. And I thought their defense was fine, but honestly, their defense was really not that good. And Derwin James, as good as he is, he really doesn't. And Joey Bosa as well. They lost Melvin Ingram, which I don't know why they didn't re-sign him. Chris Harris Jr., I liked that signing, but they lost Casey Hayward Jr. to us, the Raiders. So, there was a lot of missteps, but yeah, I had the Chargers at 12-5. They ended up being 9-8. Losing the final game to the Raiders. But then I was right on this one, dead on. Raiders, I had them at 10-7. They ended up being 10-7. Some of the wins and losses, obviously are going to be mixed up, but overall, I actually had the Giants beating the Raiders, so I was right on that one too. I felt like the Raiders were going to be a good team. Now, this was with Henry Ruggs. Damon Arnett actually was having a pretty good productive year before they released him with all his stupid videos. I liked the Raiders. I wasn't a huge John Gruden fan at that time. And neither were you. You were over him at that point.
Oh,
yeah. And I was getting there. And, it ended up actually, I think it worked out well for us to get rid of him, because if anything, the last 3-4 years with John Gruden, he proved that he couldn't finish. He had a great start, couldn't finish. So we started off well, we fired him. And then, he resigned, whatever. And then, Rich Bisaccia came in and said, I'll help you finish. So we ended on a 4-game winning streak. So we'll take it. Then I had the Broncos at 9-8. They ended up being 7-10. So I was wrong on the Chargers, Broncos. I'll say I was wrong on the Chiefs as well. I don't remember what you had them, what your record was. Oh, you had them 15-2. So well, I guess that will be the deciding factor. I was a little bit closer, I guess.
Yeah.
So, that's what I had them at.
I'll just say right now, I think this is your division that you're going to claim. So at this point, we would be tied. And the only reason why I say that is because I had the Chiefs at 15-2. Obviously, that didn't come up. I mean, it looked like they might not even win the division at one point. I mean, I think Patrick Mahomes is too talented not to get into the playoffs, but it looked really, crazy, early on, where we just didn't know what was going on.
Yeah.
And we would be texting about Patrick Mahomes' mechanics, like all those plays he used to make where he just didn't care. Like defenses were ready for it and they would pick him off. There's several games this year where he had multiple, interceptions, and sometimes weeks in a row, which he's never done before. Yeah. So definitely a different year. And
too, in fantasy, I went against Patrick Mahomes a couple of times, and both times I actually wasn't as worried as I normally was, because he kept throwing picks. So as much as I knew he could throw for 300 yards and 5 touchdowns, I knew, 3 picks would come with it. And so that's going to deplete his points a little bit. And a lot of the times it helps. So,
yeah,
fantasy football wise and regular football wise, Patrick Mahomes was sometimes a liability this season.
until he played the Raiders, and then all of a sudden he just couldn't have looked any better because he'd put up 40 points on us each time.
We called it too. We were saying he's going to play the Raiders. They're going to be fine.
Yeah, they are. And sure enough, man, we were like one of their 5-game win streaks, and they kept going. So, so anyways, I then had the Las Vegas Raiders. I had them also 10-7 in the playoffs. I had them in the wild card spot. I think I have in my notes wild card 2. I could have had them 2 or 3 when we did this. I'm probably banking on having them at 3. Knowing myself, I probably wasn't very high on John Gruden, so I barely had them.
You had the Raiders in the 6th seed.
Okay, so
I actually had them in the 7th seed. No, I had them in the last seed.
Oh, okay. So then I had them, I guess second wild card then would have been the place. So anyways, and then for the Chargers, I had them at 8-9. They finished at 9-8. So, I mean, I kind of was close on that one. This is where I think you've taken the cake in this division. I had the Broncos at 10-7. I was a lot higher on them than you were. I thought Teddy Bridgewater coming in with their offensive weapons would have helped them. I thought that Melvin Gordon would have been a serviceable running back, and also their defense was still potent, and it was very, very, very tough against, and still was that up to this season. They were a strong defense, and they hard to throw against, hard to run against, and they were tough. They were tough wins when the Raiders played them. But I had them at 10-7. I just was a little too overzealous with them. I think they finished 8-9 or something like that. What did they finish at? 7-10. Even worse. So I think
you switched their wins and losses.
Yeah, I think with how close you were with KC and how close you were with Denver, I think this is your division on this one. I missed
off on the Chargers, but
I missed too hard with Denver and with KC. So this is your division. So I think we're now split leading into the last one.
Yes, we are tied 3-3. So NFC West was what's going to separate us. So this is actually kind of exciting now. Why don't you kick off the NFC West as you have been? So
okay, so I'll go with the division winner down. So I had Seahawks winning the division at 12-5. Clearly, that's not where they finished. I think they were
7-10.
7-10. Okay, so I had them winning the division. I thought they'd be a lot stronger. In my defense, Russell Wilson got injured, I think, week 3 of the season, and he was out for at least 6 to 7 weeks, I think. Yeah. Or I think he was only out for 4 weeks, but then he spent 3 weeks trying to get his thumb back.
I think they had like a bye week too. So
yeah. So that was a little rough, and they had Geno Smith going in for him, and Geno Smith, I don't know if he should play football anymore, man. I mean, that was a rough start for him in some of those games. But
the first game that he played where Russell Wilson, not when he backed him up when Wilson got injured, but the first game where Russell Wilson actually missed, it looked like Geno Smith was going to be fine. But after that, it was not good.
Yeah. Now, as you used to love to say, now there's film on you. So now they figured you out.
Yeah.
So, and then following that, the second place in this division I would have been the LA Rams. I did have them going into the playoffs. They made the playoffs, and their record was 12-5. I predicted 12-5. Following that, I had Arizona getting in as a wild card. They got in, I think, as the division winner, or no, as the wild card. Yeah, I had them at 11-6 in the second wild card spot, and I think they're in the first wild card spot. And same record though.
Yes, you had the Cardinals in the 6th spot at 11-6. They are 11-6, and they are actually in the 5th spot. So
that would have been first wild card. So
yeah. So
then
you were almost there.
Yeah, last team on this one, I had San Francisco at 10-7, winning the 3rd wild card spot. So in my early predictions, I had all 4 teams in the playoffs. Seattle was the only one that didn't make it, and I think I nailed all the records on those 3. And
what did you have? The Niners? I'm sorry,
10-7.
Yeah, so the Niners went 10-7, Cardinals went 11-6, Rams went 12-5. So yeah, you nailed all 3 of those.
Okay. And that's what I had. So I'll just explain San Francisco real quick, because I know you're going to talk about it shortly. I know that they had a lot of injuries, which preferences probably a lot of expectations, but there's just something about Jimmy G and this offense I didn't think was quite there. Like, they're a scary team in the playoffs coming up, but I think that they're they're not as scary as people perceive them to be, if that makes any sense. I think that they may be stronger than the Cardinals because they got playoff experience, but I don't fear San Francisco as much as I would fear another team in the NFC, if that makes any sense. I just for this season, I don't know what it was about San Francisco. I just wasn't very high on them. And I don't know, man, I just had to talk about that real quick just because, I'm not a huge San Francisco fan to begin with, but I know that they had a lot of expectations because they had a lot of players coming back, but I don't know what the fascination was with it, but I just didn't think that I barely thought they were a playoff team, let alone, one of those dangerous teams to worry about. But, we'll see how they do against the Cowboys this weekend. So,
well, I thought the Niners were going to be awesome. I thought they were going to be 14-3. I like Jimmy G. Now, I did preface it by saying if Jimmy G is healthy, they can be 14-3. I was kind of going on a limb saying I feel like he's going to be healthy this year. Obviously, he wasn't. He got hurt 2 or 3 times this year. I don't remember how many times, but I know Trey Lance started a couple of games. So, that can kind of do a little bit. But Trey Lance looked fine. But overall, I thought, Deebo Samuel, he was healthy. He was coming back. He had a really good year. I thought they were going to have Raheem Mostert, and it ended up being Elijah Mitchell, some rookie that came out of nowhere. And the very end of preseason, where fantasy drafts were basically almost all of them were done, everyone was all of a sudden like, oh, Elijah Mitchell. And I was like, what the heck, man? I just drafted. I would have picked him up. But he was really good. And then their defense did pretty solid. And I had predicted that their defense was going to be just fine, even without Robert Saleh. And it seems like they were. It seemed like they did a really good job.
In all fairness, you were 100% right on that defense. So
yeah, that's about it though. I like I said, I had them at 14-3. They went 10-7. So completely wrong on that one. The Rams, I had at 12-5. I really like the Rams, but I even said on the podcast, I said, I feel like Matthew Stafford, even though, yes, everyone keeps saying, oh, it's the Lions issue. But Matthew Stafford, he's had a few games in Detroit where I felt like the Lions should have won, but he kind of just didn't do well. He just had these clunker games, and he exactly did that as I thought he was going to. So now 12-5 is no record to be like, oh, well, they're awful. But going into the playoffs, you don't look at the Rams going, this is a dominant team. You kind of look at them going, if Matthew Stafford plays, turnover-free football, then they're phenomenal. But the issue is the last few weeks, he's been turning the ball over a lot. And they're barely squeaking out wins, and they're losing games. They should have beat the Niners. They shouldn't have let the Niners in. That was my whole thing. Was I thought the Niners were going to be so much better. They weren't. They had to win the game against the Rams. All the Rams had to do was win, and they had a better team than the Niners. They got kicked in the teeth, and they lost the game to the Niners with a lead. And that was the first loss that Sean McVay had a lead at halftime.
Right.
I forget the record, but he had some undefeated record after leading at halftime, and they ended up losing. So that was the first. It was loss.
Like 45 wins to no losses at that point, I think is what it was, or something like that.
Yeah. So then I had the Seahawks at 12-5, as you did as well. Listen, you can't predict Russell Wilson was going to get injured because he never got hit. And honestly, it was kind of a freak thing. It wasn't even that he got necessarily creamed and broke a rib or something. It was, he was going through his follow through and hit a helmet and, snapped his hand basically. So, that was kind of a fluke thing, but also the defense was really bad. DK Metcalf really had a bad year this year. Even with Russell Wilson when he was playing, he wasn't having a great year. Tyler Lockett kind of took a step back. The run game was hurt when Chris Carson went down. So they had a lot of issues, and I do feel like there is some friction between Pete Carroll and the Seahawks organization, and also Russell Wilson. So, I do think that Seattle is going to be kind of going through maybe a rebuild this next year. So, can't predict that. I thought the Seahawks were going to be fine. I believed in Russell Wilson, and a lot of people did, and obviously we were wrong on that one. The Cardinals, I had it 10-7. So you have won this division, sir. Congratulations to you. Applause for you.
Fake I'll applause. Add it somehow, I guess.
Yeah, you can add it. There you go. I liked Arizona. I think I liked Arizona better than you did.
Yeah.
I was very high on them, but I was like, I just have to keep it down because I don't know about Cliff Kingsbury. And I still don't know about Cliff Kingsbury, even though they're in the playoffs. They look like they were going to run away with the NFC West division for a while. They looked like it was going to be, they were undefeated until like week 9 or something.
Yeah.
So they started off great, but they kind of had that tail off and they started losing some games that I don't think they should have lost. So, I like Kyler Murray, but I think he kind of hasn't gotten better since last year. Like he still is really good, but he really hasn't taken a step forward in my opinion. And I do think the injury with DeAndre Hopkins kind of did hurt. Obviously their defense kind of took blunders when Chandler Jones and JJ Watt both went out. Those are their 2 big pass rushers. So, that kind of plays a factor. And then I really like Chase Edmonds this year, and he had a really good year, but then he got hurt. James Conner came in, and actually they really didn't miss him, Pete. So, there were some really good things about the Cardinals, and there's some really bad things. Going into this week with the Rams and Cardinals, and I know we're going to talk about it in a little bit, but it's kind of like who's going to turn the ball over more, because whoever does that is going to lose the game. And I know you can really say that about a lot of games, most games, but the fact of the matter is you really don't feel great about either of these teams, like just taking it and running with it. Like you kind of have to look at it and go, Kyler Murray, he looks great, but he kind of turns the ball over, but so does Matthew Stafford. And, DeAndre Hopkins, we don't know. I don't think he is going to be playing. So that's going to be a huge factor. Cooper Kupp, you got to know that they're going to go to Cooper Kupp a lot. So, they're probably going to double him. So can Odell step up a little bit more and get into that role? Because Odell's been great in the red zone for the Rams, but he really hasn't been a huge factor in just the overall passing game. So it's going to be interesting, but I really did like the Cardinals. I really like their defense. They just got a lot of injuries and they didn't finish well. So